Of course, when we talk about Karabakh and East Zangezur, we should also speak about the history of Azerbaijan. Unfortunately, our rich history has long been distorted by Armenia and the Armenian diaspora. The campaign of propaganda against us does not stop even today. Therefore, we must counter this with our own truth. I spoke about this 10 years ago, at the 70th anniversary of the Academy. I want to talk about this today too. We must study and promote our history. Azerbaijani citizens, Azerbaijani youth should know our rich history. They should know that the history of the Azerbaijani people, the history of our statehood, and the ability of our people to build and create have a centuries-old history. The Azerbaijani people have lived and continue to live across a vast geography. Suffice it to say that the Azerbaijanis live everywhere beyond our borders. They also lived in Armenia, but were driven out of there. But I am sure that they will live there again, because we can see across our borders with all neighboring countries that the Azerbaijanis live in their ancient historical lands and are worthy citizens of their countries. Azerbaijanis have never been afflicted with the disease of separatism. Our people have contributed to the statehood of the countries they live in, and today, Azerbaijanis do not create and will never create problems for any state or its people. Therefore, the return of Azerbaijanis to the present-day Armenia should not intimidate the people or state of Armenia. I said this some time ago as well. We must return to our historical lands, not with tanks, but in cars. To do this, of course, the main responsibility rests on the state. I am aware that public organizations and also Azerbaijani scientists have published a number of research papers in this direction. Their number should be increased. Research works, exhibitions, presentations, and historical maps should be published. It is enough to look at early 20th century maps published by Tsarist Russia to see that the overwhelming majority of toponyms in what is now Armenia are of Azerbaijani origin. There was no Lake Sevan on those maps. There is Lake Goycha on those maps, along with all other Azerbaijani historical toponyms we use. We did not compile those maps for anyone to say that we are committing fraud. This was done by Tsarist Russia, the very Tsarist Russia that once brought Armenians from Iran and eastern Anatolia and settled them in Karabakh lands in order to alter the ethnic and religious composition here. In other words, these maps are based on pure historical truth. Therefore, we must promote and study this. More research works, even small booklets, should be prepared so that both Azerbaijani youth and the world community can know their history well, and, at the same time, for our return to present-day Armenia to sound completely logical and fair. Therefore, of course, additional steps need to be taken regarding the history of Azerbaijan. In general, there is a great need for reputable research works on the history of the independent Azerbaijani state. We have been living as an independent state for more than 30 years, and Azerbaijan has never been as strong in the centuries-old history of the Azerbaijani statehood as it is today. Therefore, there is a need for many more work studying and promoting the history of independent Azerbaijan.
Birçok eserlere ihtiyaç var.